Welcome everyone, my name is Angela, and I'm going to be reading Chapter 7 of Divergent! Yay! Like I said earlier. Just want to get it done and over with, because we are definitely going to be watching Conjuring as soon as I'm done with this. So, let's get started. When all the initiates stand on solid ground again, Lauren and Four lead us down a narrow tunnel. The walls are made of stone, and the ceiling slopes, so I feel like I'm descending deep into the heart of the earth. The tunnel is lit at long intervals, so in the dark space between each dim lamp, I fear that I am lost until a shoulder bumps mine. In the circle of light, I am safe again. The erudite boy in front of me stops abruptly, and I smack into him, hitting my nose on his shoulder. I stumble back and rub my nose as I recover my senses. The whole crowd has stopped, and our three leaders stand in front of us, arms folded. "This is where we divide," Lauren says. "The dauntless-born initiates are with me. I assume you don't need a tour of the place." She smiles and beckons toward the dauntless-born initiates. They break away from the group and dissolve into the shadows. I watch the last heel pass out of the light and look at those of us who are left. Most of the initiates were from Dauntless, so only 9 people remain. Of those, I am the only abnegation transfer, and there are no amity transfers. The rest are from Erudite, and surprisingly Candor. It must require bravery to be honest all the time. I wouldn't know. Four addresses us next. "Most of the time, I work in the control room, but for the next few weeks, I'm your instructor," he says. "My name is Four." Christina asks, "Four? Like the number?" "Yes," Four says. "Is there a problem?" "No." "Good. We're about to go into the pit, which you will someday learn to love. Christina snickers. The pit? Clever name. Four walks up to Christina and leans his face close to hers. His eyes narrow, and for a second he just stares at her. "What's your name?" he asks quietly. "Christina?" She squeaks. "Well, Christina, if I wanted to put up with Candor's smart mouths, I would have joined their faction," he hisses. "The first lesson you will learn from me is to keep your mouth shut. Got it?" She nods. Four starts toward the shadow at the end of the tunnel. The crowd of initiates moves in silence. "What a jerk," she mumbles. "I guess he doesn't like to be laughed at," I reply. It would probably be wise to be careful around Four, I realize. He seemed placid to me on the platform, but something about that stillness makes me wary now. Four pushes a set of double doors open, and we walk into the place he called the pit. "Oh," whispers Christina. "I get it." The pit is the best word for it. It is an underground cavern so huge I can't see the other end of it from where I stand at the bottom. Uneven rock walls rise several stories above my head. Built into the stone walls are places for food, clothing, supplies, leisure activities. Narrow paths and steps carved from rock connect to them. There are no barriers to keep people from falling over. A slant of orange light stretches across one of the rock walls. Forming the roof of the pit are panes of glass, and above them a building that lets in sunlight. It must have looked like just another city building when we passed it on the train. Blue lanterns dangle at random intervals above the stone paths, similar to the ones that lit the choosing room. They grow brighter as the sunlight dies. People are everywhere, all dressed in black, all shouting and talking, expressive, gesturing. I don't see any elderly people in the crowd. Are there any old Dauntless? Do they not last that long, or are they just sent away when they can't jump off the moving trains anymore? A group of children run down a narrow path with no railing. So fast my heart pounds, and I want to scream at them to slow down before they get hurt. A memory of the orderly abnegation streets appear in my mind. A line of people on the right passing a line of people on the left. Small smiles and inclined heads, and silence. My stomach squeezes, but there is something wonderful about dauntless chaos. "If you follow me," says Four, "I will show you the chasm." He waves us forward. Four's appearance seems tame from the front, but by dauntless standards. But when he turns around, I see a tattoo peeking out from the collar of his t-shirt. He leads us to the right side of the pit, which is conspicuously dark. I squint and see that the floor I stand on now ends at an iron barrier. As we approach the railing, I hear a roar. Water. Fast-moving water. Crashing against the rocks. I look over the side. The floor drops off at a sharp angle, and several stories below us is a river. Gushing water strikes the wall beneath me and sprays upward. To my left, the water is calmer, but to my right, it is white, battling with rock. "The chasm reminds us that there is a fine line between bravery and idiocy," Four shouts. "A daredevil jump off this ledge will end your life. It has happened before, and it will happen again. You have been warned." "This is incredible," says Christina as we all move away from the railing. "Incredible is the word," I say, nodding. Four leads the group of initiates across the pit toward a gaping hole in the wall. The room beyond is well lit enough I can see where we're going. A dining hall full of people and clattering silverware. When we walk in, the dauntless inside stand. They applaud. They stamp their feet. They shout. The noise surrounds me and fills me. Christina smiles, and a second later, so do I. We look for empty seats. Christina and I discover a mostly empty table at the side of the room, and I find myself sitting between her and Four. In the center of the table is a platter of food I don't recognize. Circular pieces of meat wedged between round bread slices. I pinch one between my fingers, unsure what to make of it. Four nudges me with his elbow. "It's beef," he says. "Put this on it." He passes me a small bowl full of red sauce. "You've never had a hamburger before?" asks Christina, her eyes white. "No. Is that what it's called?" "Stiffs eat plain food," Four says, nodding at Christina. "Why?" she asks. I shrug. "Extravagance is considered self-indulgent and unnecessary." She smirks. "No wonder you left." "Yeah," I say, rolling my eyes. "It's just because of the food." The corner of Four's mouth twitches. The doors to the cafeteria open, and a hush falls over the room. I look over my shoulder. A young man walks in, and it is quiet enough I can hear his footsteps. His face is pierced in so many places I lose count, and his hair is long and dark and greasy. But that isn't what makes him look menacing. It is the coldness of his eyes as they sweep across the room. "Who's that?" hisses Christina. "His name is Eric," says Four. "He's a dauntless leader." "Seriously? But he's so young." Four gives her a grave look. "Age doesn't matter here." I can tell she's about to ask what I want to ask, and what does matter. But Eric's eyes stop scanning the room, and he starts toward a table. He starts toward our table, and drops into the seat next to Four. He offers no greeting, so neither do we. "Well, aren't you going to introduce me?" he asks, nodding to Christina and me. Four says, "This is Tris and Christina." "Ooh, a stiff," says Eric, smirking at me, his smile pulling at the piercings on his lips, making the holes they occupy wider, and I wince. "We'll see how long you last." I mean to say something to assure him that I will last, maybe. but words fail me. I don't understand why, but I don't want Eric to look at me any longer than he already has. I don't want him to look at me ever again. He taps his fingers against the table. His knuckles are scabbed over, right where they would split if he punched someone too hard. What have you been doing lately, For? He asks. For lifts a shoulder. Nothing, really. Yeah, he says. Are they friends? My eyes flick between Eric and For. Everything Eric did, sitting here asking about For, suggests that they are. But the way For sits, tense as pulled wire, suggests that they are something else. Rivals, maybe, but how could that be? If Eric is the leader and For is not? Max tells me he keeps trying to meet with you, and you don't show up. Eric says, he requested that I find out what's going on with you. For looks at Eric for a few seconds before saying, tell him that I'm satisfied with the position I currently hold. So he wants to give you a job. The rings in Eric's eyebrow catch the light. Maybe Eric perceives For as a potential threat to his position. My father says that those who want power and get it live in terror of losing it. That's why we give power to those who do not want it. So it would seem, For says, and you aren't interested. I haven't been interested for 2 years. Well, says Eric, let's hope he gets the point then. He claps For on the shoulder, a little too hard, and gets up. When he walks away, I slouch immediately. I hadn't realized I was so tense. Are you two friends? I say, unable to contain my curiosity. We were in the same initiate class, he says. He transferred from Eurodite. All thoughts of being careful around For leave me. Were you a transfer too? I thought I would only have trouble with the candor asking too many questions, he says coldly. Now I have got stiffs too. It must be because you're so approachable, I say, flatly. You know, like a bed of nails. He stares at me, and I don't look away. He isn't a dog, but the same rules apply. Looking away is submissive. Looking him in the eye is a challenge. It's my choice. Heat rushes into my cheeks. What will happen when the tension breaks? But he just says, careful, Tris. My stomach drops like I just swallowed a stone. A dauntless member at another table calls out For's name, and I turn to Christina. She raises both eyebrows. What? I'm developing a theory. And that is? She picks up her hamburger, grins, and says that you have a death wish. After dinner, Ford disappears without a word. Eric leads us down a series of hallways without telling us where we're going. I don't know why a dauntless leader would be responsible for a group of initiates, but maybe it's just for tonight. At the end of each hallway is a blue lamp, but between them it's dark, and I have to be careful not to stumble or over uneven ground. Christina walks beside me in silence. No one told us to be quiet, but none of us speak. Eric stops in front of a wooden door and folds his arms. We gather around him. For those of you who don't know, my name is Eric, he says. I'm one of the 5 leaders of the Dauntless. We take the initiation process very seriously here, so I volunteer to oversee most of your training. The thought makes me nauseous. The idea that a Dauntless leader would oversee our initiation is bad enough, but the fact that it's Eric makes it seem even worse. Some ground rules, he says. You have to be in the training room by 8 o'clock every day. Training takes place every day from 8 to 6, with a break for lunch. You are free to do what you like after 6. You will also get some time off between each stage of initiation. The phrase, do whatever you like, sticks in my mind. At home, I could never do what I wanted, not even for an evening. I had to think of other people's needs first, and I don't even know what I like to do. You are only permitted to leave the compound when occupied by a dauntless. Eric adds, behind this door is the room where you will be sleeping for the next few weeks. You will notice that there are 10 beds and only 9 of you. We anticipated that a higher portion of you will make it this far. We started off with 12, protests Christina. I close my eyes and wait for the reprimand. She needs to learn to stay quiet. There is always at least one transfer who doesn't make it to the compound, says Eric, picking at his cuticles. He shrugs. Anyway, in the first stage of initiation, we keep transfers and Dauntless-born initiates separate, but that doesn't mean you are evaluated separately. At the end of initiation, your rankings will be determined in comparison with the Dauntless-born initiates, and they are better than you already. So I expect... Rankings? Asked the mousy-haired erudite to my right. Why are we ranked? Eric smiles, and in the blue light, his smile looks wicked, like it was cut into his face with a knife. Your ranking serves 2 purposes, he says. The first is that it determines the order in which you will select a job after initiation. There are only a few desirable positions available. My stomach tightens. I know by looking at his smile, like I knew the second I entered the aptitude test room, that something bad is going to happen. The second purpose, he says, is that only the top 10 initiates are made members. Pain stabs my stomach. We all stand still as statues, and then Christina says, What? There are 11 Dauntless-borns and 9 of you. Eric continues, Eric. 4 initiates will be cut at the end of stage 1. The remainder will be cut after the final test. That means that even if we make it through each stage of initiation... That means that even if we make it through each stage of initiation, 6 initiates will not be members. I see Christina look at me from the corner of my eye, but I can't look back at her. My eyes are fixed on Eric and will not move. My odds, as the smallest initiate, as the only abnegation transfer, are not good. What do we do for cut? Peter says. You leave the Dauntless compound, says Eric indifferently, and live factionless. The mousy-haired girl clamps her hand over her mouth and stifles a sob. Sorry. I remember the factionless man with the gray teeth snatching the bag of apples from my hands, his dull, staring eyes. But instead of crying like the erudite girl, I feel colder, harder. I will be a member. I will. But that's not fair, the broad-shouldered candor girl, Molly, says. Even though she sounds angry, she looks terrified. If we had known... Are you saying that if you had known before the choosing ceremony, you wouldn't have chosen Dauntless? Eric snaps. Because if that's the case, you should get out now. If you are really one of us, it won't matter to you if you might fail, and if it does, you are a coward. Eric pushes the door to the dormitory open. You chose us, he says. Now we have to choose you. I lie in bed and listen to 9 people breathing. I have never slept in the same room as a boy before, but I have no other option unless I want to sleep in the hallway. Everyone else changed into clothes the dullness provided for us, but I sleep in my abnegation clothes, which still smell like soap and fresh air, like home. I used to have my own room. I could see the front lawn from my window, and beyond it, the foggy skyline. I am used to sleeping in silence. Heat swells behind my eyes as I think of home, and when I blink, a tear slips out. I cover my mouth to stifle a sob. I can't cry, not here. I have to calm down. It will be all right here. I can look at my reflection whenever I want. I can befriend Christina and cut my hair short and let other people clean up their own messes. My hands shake and the tears come faster now, blurring my vision. It doesn't matter that the next time I see my parents on visiting day, they will barely recognize me, if they come at all. It doesn't matter that I have an ache and a split-second memory of their faces, even Caleb's, despite how much his secrets hurt me. I match my inhales to the inhales of the other initiates, and my exhales to their exhales. It doesn't matter. A strangled sound interrupts the breathing, followed by a heavy sob. Bed springs squeal as a large body turns, and a pillow muffles the sobs, but not enough. They come from the bunk next to mine. They belong to a Candor boy, Al, the largest and broadest of all the initiates. He is the last person I expected to break down. His feet are just inches away from my head. I should come for him. I should want to come for him, because I was raised that way. Instead, I feel disgust. Someone who looks so strong shouldn't act so weak. Why can't he just keep his crying quiet like the rest of us? I swallow hard. If my mother knew what I was thinking, I know what look she would give me. The corners of her mouth turned down, her eyebrows sat low over her eyes, not scowling, almost tired. I drag the heel of my head over my cheeks. Al sobs again. I almost feel the sound grate in my own throat. He is just inches away from me. I should touch him. No. I put my hand down and roll onto my side, facing the wall. No one has to know that I don't want to help him. I can keep that secret buried. My eyes shut, and I feel the pull of sleep, but every time I come close, I hear Al again. Maybe my problem isn't that I can't go home. I will miss my mother and father and Caleb and evening firelight and the clack of my mother's knitting needles, but that's not the only reason for this hollow feeling in my stomach. My problem might be that even if I did go home, I wouldn't belong there, among people who give without thinking or care without trying. The thought makes me grit my teeth. I gather the pillow around my ears to block out Al's crying, and fall asleep with a circle of moisture pressed to my cheek. That is the end of chapter 7, and yeah, that's it. Have a good day, everyone. Good night.